Our speaker today is Lashana Lewis, and she's a technologist working in the diversity space with over 20 years of experience. She is currently CEO of LM Lewis Consulting, a company which aims to make employers more diverse through recruitment, hiring, and retention best practices. She also serves as director of the St. Louis Equity and Entrepreneurship Collective, an organization focused on building systems of race and gender equality for St. Louis's early stage entrepreneurial ecosystem. Lashana lends her IT knowledge as a technical consultant, serves as a role model for diversity in technology, and has met with President Barack Obama as part of the nationwide Tech Hire Initiative, which encourages employers to hire and train people with non-traditional tech backgrounds. Thank you so much, Lashana, for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. So welcome, everyone. This is kind of my crash course. So just to let you know, this is not the complete overall type of consulting that I have with diversity training. Is the first step, not the finish line. It's kind of more of a kind of condensed version. So I will have some links later you'll be able to go to and read up a little bit more. I always try to have something for people to walk away with just in case they want to get a little bit more extra information. So here we go. We'll get started. All right. The agenda, I try to keep it pretty clear and concise. I decided to kind of go through a guide, kind of a white paper that I actually have that is called Diversity Training is the first step and not the finish line. So a lot of this information is taken from that guide, and you can download it for free, and I'll give you information and a link as to how to get that. But basically, we're going to talk about why D&I, diversity and inclusion, matters, what comes after training, how do you make lasting changes, which is kind of my, my personal pet peeve of having the training, but then nothing being implemented afterwards. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'll give you 3 non-negotiable pillars for every D&I plan that you create in order to create a brighter workplace with D&I. And then those links that I told you that I'll have for you later with articles and guides. All right, I'm starting off with this awesome quote that I actually saw a couple of days before this webinar, and it's from Arlen Hamilton. For those of you who do not know anything about Arlen Hamilton, I really, really suggest you Google and find out a lot about her life. Our lives almost kind of run in parallel to each other, and you'll see why this quote of Black folk are the most resourceful people in the world is so instrumental and so personal to me, and a lot of it has to do with some of her struggles. She just recently came out with a book this March called It's About Damn Time, and I highly suggest everyone take the time to read it because it is a great book. I believe it came out in May, not March. All right, why do companies prioritize D&I? Well, from some statistics that I was able to pull from LinkedIn's career site, 49% want to represent their customer base more accurately, 62% want to improve their performance. So they already know and they understand that there are some extra things that they could do to kind of boost what is already part of their company regime. And 78% want to boost not only just performance, but the company culture, which is kind of what you're talking about here. And I like to tell people, it's like companies are made out of people. So you have to kind of attune to the people. Whenever you have a company made out of machines, those machines don't care. They don't care what you say to them or how you treat them, as long as you give them oil and attune to their physical needs. But people need a little bit extra. So companies are starting to see that more is needed than just the typical business operation procedures. All right, why does it matter? Like I said, it's essential that basically will have the tertiary benefits. So even though it may kind of seem like on the surface that you're only just kind of taking care of things just to kind of make it look nice or whatever, those actually end up having ancillary benefits. as I tell people, the workplace is no longer homogeneous. It's not the same people coming into work. Back then, most of the people who went in and clocked into work happened to be white males. So guess what? The entirety of the way that workplaces are formulated and wrapped around that homogeneous presence. So now you're changing. You're changing the landscape. There are women coming in. There are people of color coming in. There are people of different levels of abilities coming in. So now the workplace has to change to accommodate more of that because, and as I'll say later, your customer base is also changing. So you kind of want that dual reflection there. And there are a lot of statistics. I tell people you can kind of Google it yourself or search it yourself. Diverse workplaces outperform in financial returns. And that's just not LaShawna saying it because she wants to sell something. It's actually literally something that has been researched. All right. So you got your diversity training, and most companies are like, "Yeah, we need it," especially right now. I'm getting hit up from both ends: diversity training and diversity consulting. What my business does is actually the consulting part. So I do the second step. So after the training is over with, I go in and actually work on fine tuning all those standard operating procedures and retention hiring practices and things like that in order to actually reflect the diversity that that company wants. And a lot of it is just everyday business practices. Just think about a way that you can make, for instance, the hiring process a little bit more inclusive than it would have normally been. A lot of us sit in a sterile environment. We're in this conference room with one or two other people, and we're getting questions kind of thrown at us. One company called Pivotal was just like that. It doesn't work very well, and it really doesn't tell us how the employee is actually going to perform. So they broke it and decided that instead of doing it in that manner, they were actually going to do a test day, like an audition. You get to work, eat lunch, be in a complete environment of the workplace. And then you kind of see how you jive. They obviously know that you're not going to know how to solve the problems. You might not have the knowledge base there, but they kind of see how you're getting along with the other employees, with the workspace, with the tasks that are kind of coming down in hand. And it really shifted the dynamic of the types of people that they ended up hiring. And I've got a link down there to actually Pivotal's website where they talk about how they completely changed their dynamic. So you can read more about that later. So how do you make the lasting changes? So it's great you're making these changes, but what does it actually mean when you're going through and making the changes here? Well, first off, you want to kind of dig in, know where you're starting from. Just know exactly like where you're at. Some people kind of want to just start throwing things in, and maybe they might not be where you are at the time. I even say whenever I do diversity consulting, I need you to teach me about your company. I can kind of come and give you this checklist, but that checklist doesn't mean anything if I'm completely off base of what your D&I issues might or happen to be. A lot of times people do an assessment. This part, a lot of people tend to do right. They go out, they survey, they make it anonymous, get all the feedback and things of that nature. So that, keep doing that. I tell people don't do it just once to say, hey, we surveyed our people 4 years ago and this is how they feel. It's like you should be surveying people and assessing like on a way more frequent basis. Find ambassadors. So those are those key players that will kind of go in and be able to say, hey, I know we're doing something for Pride, but I really would love to be able to kind of have this booth over at this particular event that might give our company a little bit more of an edge over competitors, over other people. And I think they really would like to see a face that's reflective of somebody from the LGBT community or someone from the Black community or someone who identifies as female. Those things don't always have to come through HR, and it doesn't always have to be HR going out and doing that. You can find ambassadors in your company who might need to get a few items, throw together a booth or something like that. Crowdsource. So there are tons and tons and tons of companies who do the great job of creating affiliate programs, but they never ask them for feedback. It's like they're a nice to have. They're just kind of like, hey, we have this Black group, or we have this um, women's group that represents this sector of our company. But when they're trying to create a product or they're trying to develop a service, they never think to go and internally use those people to say, what does this actually look like to you? How is this, substantial, or how is this influential in a positive or a negative way? And you can even do it anonymously, but you have those people use them. Um, and of course, you're going to inevitably get stuck. That's where you call in the experts. That's why I say don't make your HR department do double duty, because your HR people probably have a billion other things to do. And if you get to that point to where the person within HR is just like, I understand you want to do these diversity and inclusion initiatives, but I literally just don't have the bandwidth. Do not be afraid to call in the experts to come in, kind of evaluate and see where you can make some tweaks. We don't expect everybody to know the answer. No one's gonna scoff at you and tell you, oh, you're an idiot. That's the wrong way to do that. It's just more like, okay, thank you for contacting me. Thank you for following up with me, and I'm more than happy to help. And I actually just finished doing that yesterday, where a company asked me for their help and wanted me to review a couple of documents for them, and gave them some feedback, and they were more than happy. And like I said, as with the surveys, as with using your focus groups of affiliate groups that you have, do this stuff regularly. Don't do it just one time. Don't just be, sitting on your heels and say, we did this in 2017. You need to keep this up regularly. And it's kind of like a checkup. With a health checkup, you can go to the doctor when you're 5 years old, but you're also 45 years old now. That doesn't mean because you went at 5 that you shouldn't have gone in between 5 years old and 45 years old. You go regularly, and it's just to kind of get a span on exactly where you are. You want to do the same things when you're doing your D&I efforts, just to make sure that there's not anything that you're missing or that needs to change. But obviously, as we find out more things will kind of grow and more questions will appear. So here are my 3 non-negotiable pillars of every D&I plan that you or your company may create. As I said, keep asking questions. Keep asking questions over and over and over again. Even if you think you know what the answer is, I guarantee you will probably end up getting an answer that you did not expect or did not happen the last time. Keep an open mind. Don't think that you know everything. You could have read the Atlantic and Blavity and all these other articles, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna know everything. Everyone's not gonna know everything. So keep an open mind and just say, okay, there might be something that I missed. There's something probably that I might not know about. So when someone's telling me something new, I need to say, okay, let me think about that. Let me do my own research. And I'll say, keep trust in the forefront. A lot of times we kind of want to hold everything very, very close and dear to our heart. But like I said, with the ambassador program that you could create, this is allowing your employees to kind of feel a little bit more invested. Like, okay, I'm going to Grace Hopper, which is like a women's tech event. And I'm going to let the women who actually work in the engineering department, the women who work in cybersecurity, actually go and take the booth materials and all of the other stuff for our name brand and go and represent the best of us. So, like I said earlier in the presentation, it basically is going to create more of this synergy. I don't use that word too often, but I'm hearing it kind of make a comeback. But basically, you're going to have this growing and changing customer base. It only makes sense that the things that are designed for that customer need to also reflect the people that are designing it. And I did another presentation earlier where I talk about some different examples where even in the research and development department, they didn't have enough people of color that felt empowered. They didn't have very many women that felt empowered to be able to kind of say, hey, you're missing a whole demographic where you're designing this product. With people of color, I talk about the whole thing of the self-driving cars and how for some reason, they found out it didn't do very well for dark-skinned women. It wasn't stopping at the right amount of time. And I was like, well, if you would have had some dark-skinned women, that probably would not have been something you would have missed. The other one with the women and driving, for some reason, one of the test driving government programs never thought to put a woman in the driver's seat whenever they were testing through these crash test dummies. There are female crash test dummies, but they were never in the driver's seat until 2011. Big oversight, big thing to miss. There are a lot of women who have been driving for a very long time, and it's like it just dawned on them then. So in essence, when you make sure that those people are there, they feel more invested. When companies make sure they include me at the table, I feel more invested. I feel like, okay, not only that, but if they're hearing me, if they're taking my ideas and not just saying, okay, LaShawna talk, but they're saying, okay, LaShawna had some really instrumental things to say and a different perspective that we didn't think about, that makes me a little bit more invested to kind of give you more of my ideas and try to get you even more into that sector that maybe you didn't even think was available to your company. And the most important part is give folks room to reach their potentials, because there were some times where I would start at a company and maybe they thought that, I was on a particular level, and I start talking about these ideas and trying to strategize and other things. And then, sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, you need to work on this project then, because we're having this issue and we would love to have you there. And then in one instance, it actually ended up being a promotion for me. So give folks that room to grow. And sometimes it might not be the stereotypical bachelor's, master's, or certification or whatever person that you think it might be. Sometimes people just shine naturally if you give them a chance to do many of these things that I'm talking about. So I have one more quote from Arlen. Being so deeply, truly yourself as a non-negotiable is the answer to everything else. And I love that she said this. This was actually at a tech conference where somebody was kind of asking like, what should I do to stand out? And basically she was basically like, be yourself, be who you are. And that in itself will catch my attention, because I will be like, okay, this is the type of person I'm looking for, as opposed to being something that you think that you're supposed to. One of the very cool things is Arlen Hamilton actually just started a class through this course portal called Teachable. And if you go to arlenwashere.teachable.com and you decide to take the class, I was able to get a referral code. So for those of you that are interested in the class, the referral code is right there. It's LaShawna30. So it's my first name with the number 30 on it for half off. If it doesn't work, let me know. But as far as I know, it should still be in play. But I asked her about that, and I said, if anybody wants to take this course, what can I give them? And I tried to see what I could offer to people in these courses and webinars and other items that I participate in throughout the last few weeks and months, especially since COVID-19. All right, as promised, here are the articles and the guide that I said that I would have for you. The first article, Do Diversity Inclusion Have to Be Overwhelming, is an article I wrote that is in Entrepreneur Magazine. It is available if you Google my name, but if you don't want to do all of that and you just want to hit this link right here in the slide, you will actually be rerouted to that article. Another one is 6 ways LGBTQIA inclusion makes your company more competitive. I did this for American Express's business site. So that is actually out and that is also published. I did not write that article, but it does feature some of my ideas in the 6 ways. And the last article here, diversity training is complete. Now what, is an article I did for a publication called HR Daily Advisor. Again, you can click on this link, you'll be taken directly to that. That is an article that I wrote, and it gives a lot of the tools and tips, some of the things that I mentioned today, but it gets a little bit more granular. And the last part is The guide that I told you that I have, it's called Diversity Training is the First Step, not the Finish Line, just like the title of this talk. And you will be able to sign up, download it for free. If you want to distribute it among the other people in your companies, feel free to do so. It's got a lot of nice graphics and charts and things like that. And it kind of attunes to people who are just trying to quickly go through, get a couple of ideas of things that they could do differently, and be able to have some great takeaways. And of course, the last slide is my contact information. So if anyone wants to reach me, they can go straight to my website, lmlewisconsulting.com. I actually have a contact portion on that website. You see it right there when you go to the website, and it'll actually take you to this page here. You'll be able to enter in your name, your email address, a subject, and a message. It goes to my main mailbox, which I check, as well as my wife, who helps me out from time to time. And it's actually this email address here, hello@lmlewisconsulting.com. But if you ever want to tweet at me, you're more than welcome to do it at lmlewis517. Or if you want to visit and find out a little bit more, I usually share like articles, and sometimes I'll repost things on the Facebook page, and that is at Ellen Lewis Consulting there on Facebook. All right, and I think that is the end of my presentation. Happy to take any questions.